I've always been the kind of person who doesn't just walk into a room, I own it. From the crisp cut of my tailored suits to the unyielding glint in my eyes, everything about me screams ambition. That's me, Betty, in a nutshell. I like to win, not just because it felt good, but because it affirmed my existence, my sharpness, my very right to be in the upper echelons of this cutthroat legal world. Our firm, Sterling and Finch, was a battlefield, and I thrived on the skirmishes. My primary rival in this arena was Martha. Martha Hayes. Just the name conjures an image of cool, collected precision, a meticulousness that, frankly, often bored me. She was everything I wasn't, reserved, deliberate, almost serene in her approach. Her suits were always impeccably classic, her dark hair often pulled back in a sleek, low ponytail that framed a face I grudgingly admitted was quite striking. Her eyes, a calm, deep hazel, held a steady intensity that could be disarming, though I usually wrote it off as a lack of emotional range. I preferred the fire, the immediate spark. We were both 25, fresh enough to be hungry, but seasoned enough to know the game. I saw her caution as a handicap, a hesitation that would always keep her a step behind my aggressive forward momentum. She, I imagined, viewed my speed as recklessness, a tendency to overlook the subtle currents beneath the surface. We were oil and water, two distinct forces that, by some strange twist of fate, orbited the same professional universe, constantly vying for the choicest cases, the most challenging clients. It was an unspoken competition, a constant, low hum beneath the surface of polite professional interactions. I lived for the thrill of outmaneuvering her, of proving that my way, the audacious way, was the superior path to victory. The email landed in my inbox like a grenade. New client opportunity, Veritas Innovations, multi-billion-dollar corporate litigation. My pulse quickened. This wasn't just any case. It was a career-defining behemoth. Veritas, a tech giant, was embroiled in a patent infringement suit that promised to be complex, high-profile, and utterly brutal. It was exactly the kind of battleground I craved, a place where my aggressive tactics and strategic boldness could truly shine. I could almost feel Martha's eyes on that same email, her methodical mind already dissecting every paragraph, every clause. I knew she'd want it. She always gravitated toward cases that demanded painstaking analysis, where every detail mattered. But this time, I wasn't just going to want it, I was going to seize it. My plan was simple: strike fast, strike hard. I immediately booked a meeting with the senior partners, preparing a dazzling presentation that highlighted my track record for aggressive, decisive action, my ability to turn the tide in high-stakes environments. I painted a picture of myself as the sword, swift and unyielding, that Veritas needed. 2 days later, the official announcement came. Betty Hayes has been assigned lead counsel on the Veritas Innovations case. A small, triumphant smile played on my lips. I couldn't resist a quick stop by Martha's office, ostensibly to collect a brief from a shared paralegal. Martha was at her desk, a stack of meticulously organized files before her, a pen poised over a legal pad. Her dark hair was, as usual, pulled back, revealing the elegant curve of her neck. She looked up, her hazel eyes meeting mine. "Oh, Betty," she said, her voice smooth, calm. There was no tremor of disappointment, no overt sign of pique, just that steady gaze. I leaned against the doorframe, a casual triumph in my stance. Just picked up the Veritas file. Big one. I let the words hang in the air, a subtle challenge. Her lips, usually a soft, unpainted line, tightened almost imperceptibly. A flicker in her eyes, gone as quickly as it appeared, was a silent acknowledgement of my victory. She simply nodded. Indeed. A significant challenge. Her composure was, as always, unnerving. Like she'd already accepted the loss before it even stung, and that stung more than any sharp remark she could have made. I, in my self-assuredness, felt only the sweet taste of having won another round against my most formidable, if understated, rival. I immediately dove into the Veritas case with my usual fervent intensity. My office became a war room, littered with flowcharts, competitor analyses, and stacks of documents. My team, a mix of ambitious associates and dedicated paralegals, buzzed with my energy. I briefed them with a confident swagger, outlining our aggressive litigation strategy, convinced that our frontal assault would dismantle the opposition's claims piece by piece. My overconfidence was a palpable thing, a shield against any doubt. It was a Tuesday afternoon, a few days into our full-scale assault, when Martha appeared at my doorway again. I was mid-sentence, dictating a motion, and looked up, a hint of impatience coloring my expression. She held a single, slim folder, her posture as poised as ever. "Betty," she began, her voice even. I was reviewing some initial public filings for Veritas from an old pro bono I assisted with a few years back. There was a subsidiary acquisition 6 years ago that had some rather complex intellectual property agreements attached. She held out the folder. "It's a long shot, but sometimes the devil's in the oldest details." I thought it might be relevant, given the current patent dispute. I took the folder, flipping through it cursorily, pages of what looked like dusty, minor paperwork, peripheral to the core patent fight at best. Why waste time digging through ancient history when the real battle was in the here and now? I looked up at her, my brow slightly furrowed. Was this a genuine professional courtesy, or a subtle attempt to slow me down, to inject doubt? My internal monologue dismissed the latter, attributing her advice to her typical cautiousness, perhaps even a hint of jealousy that she wasn't leading the case. "Thanks, Martha," I said, my tone dismissive, though I tried to temper it with a practiced nod. "I appreciate the thought. But we're focused on the primary infringement claims right now. My team and I are confident in our current approach." I placed the folder on a pile of less urgent documents, signaling its insignificance. Martha's gaze lingered for a moment, those calm hazel eyes seeming to hold a silent, knowing observation. I wanted to snap at her, to ask if she was here to gloat, but her face was too neutral, too unreadable. It made me angrier, so I turned back to my dictation, determined to ignore her. She didn't press the issue. "Of course," she said, her voice betraying nothing. "Just a thought. Good luck with the deposition this afternoon." With that, she turned and left, leaving me in the echo of my own unwavering confidence. I barely gave her warning another thought, too wrapped up in the glow of my perceived brilliance. The initial phase of the Veritas case played out much as I'd predicted. My aggressive tactics, sharp cross-examinations, and unyielding motions, they all seemed to hit their marks. We secured a few early wins in preliminary hearings, bolstering my confidence further. The client, Veritas's stoic CEO, Mr. Harrison, offered a rare, approving nod after one particularly heated exchange. I felt invincible. Then came the deposition of Dr. Anya Sharma, a brilliant, unassuming scientist from Veritas's past acquisition, now a key witness for the opposition. My preparation for her had been exhaustive, focusing on discrediting her current role and her understanding of the patent in question. I walked into that room with an almost arrogant certainty, ready to tear apart her testimony. But as I grilled her about the specifics of the patent, she calmly, almost innocently, referenced an obscure clause from a 6-year-old intellectual property agreement, the very one Martha had mentioned. My mind raced, trying to recall it, but it was a faint echo, buried under the mountain of documents I'd prioritized. This clause, she explained, fundamentally altered the scope of Veritas's rights to certain foundational technologies the opposition was now claiming were infringed upon. My aggressive line of questioning faltered mid-sentence. The opposition's counsel, usually flustered by my rapid-fire challenges, now sat back in his chair, a smug smile tugging at his lips like he'd been waiting for this. The judge's frown deepened, her pen pausing over her notes, and I felt Mr. Harrison's gaze burn into the back of my neck. Cold, sharp, unforgiving. The air in the room thickened, turning cold. I saw the doubt flicker in Mr. Harrison's eyes, a rare crack in his impassive facade. By the end of the deposition, the damage was undeniable. Dr. Sharma's quiet, Precise testimony had not only highlighted a gaping hole in our argument, but had also cast a shadow over our entire case. I retreated from the courtroom, my usual swagger replaced by a leaden dread. Mr. Harrison cornered me in the hallway, his voice low and dangerous. "If this case collapses, Betty, so does your future at this firm. Fix it." His words hung in the air, a threat I couldn't ignore. I found myself alone in my office, the city lights blurring outside my window. The weight of potential failure pressed down on me, heavy and suffocating. My confidence, once an unshakable fortress, crumbled, leaving me exposed and reeling. I had missed it. I had been warned, and I had dismissed it. The taste of victory had turned to ash in my mouth. The silence in my office was deafening, punctuated only by the furious scrawl of my pen as I savagely marked up the case files, searching for the fault line, the exact moment I'd gone astray. My tailored suit felt like a straitjacket, every seam constricting. I stared at the obscure clause, now glaringly obvious, wondering how I could have been so blind, so arrogantly dismissive. The potential loss wasn't just a professional setback, it felt like a personal failing, a blow to the very core of my identity. A soft knock interrupted my self-flagellation. I looked up, dreading the possibility of another dressing down from Mr. Harrison. But it was Martha, standing framed in my doorway, her presence as quiet and composed as ever. Her dark hair was neatly pinned, her expression unreadable. My stomach twisted. Here it was, I thought, the "I told you so" moment, wrapped in a veneer of polite concern. I braced myself, preparing a sharp retort, a defense of my bruised ego. She stepped inside, closing the door gently behind her. The click resonated in the quiet room. She didn't sit, just stood a few feet from my desk, her gaze steady, not pitying, not triumphant. "I heard about Dr. Sharma's testimony," she said, her voice low, devoid of judgment. "It's a difficult situation." I just nodded, my jaw tight enough to ache. I waited for the "I told you so," for the smirk, the sarcasm. Anything to confirm she was here to rub my failure in my face. But her face stayed calm, her eyes steady, no trace of triumph. It threw me off, made my anger fizzle into something closer to shame. Instead of a barb, she walked over to my whiteboard, picking up a marker. "The challenge now isn't to backtrack on what was missed," she began, her tone purely analytical, "but to pivot. That subsidiary acquisition, the one with the IP clause? It was a smaller entity. Their integration into Veritas was never fully complete. There's a potential argument to be made that the specific technologies Dr. Sharma referenced were not fully absorbed into Veritas's core IP, remaining under the subsidiary's original, more limited, license terms. It's a long shot, but it redefines the scope of infringement, shifting the focus from Veritas's broad patent to this specific, older agreement." She sketched out a complex diagram, her movements fluid and precise. Lines of ownership, license terms, loopholes I'd never considered. She laid it all out like a map, and suddenly, the case didn't look like a lost cause. I stared at the whiteboard, then at her, and for the first time, I saw her not as a rival, but as someone who might just save me from myself. The person I'd viewed as a predictable, cautious opponent was revealing an unexpected depth of compassion and insight. The decision to accept Martha's help felt like a concession, a bitter pill to swallow for someone who prided herself on self-reliance. But the urgency of the Veritas case outweighed my bruised ego. "All right," I said, my voice rough, still laced with residual anger at myself and a flicker of shame at needing her. "Walk me through it. Every detail. Don't skip a thing." And so, our unlikely alliance began. My office, once a solitary command center, where my word was final, transformed into a dual strategy room, and it wasn't always smooth. I'd push for a bold motion. She'd push back, pointing out a flaw in the logic I'd missed. "Aggression without foundation is just noise," she'd say, and I'd grit my teeth, but I'd listen. Because every time, she was right. Martha, with her neat stack of files and precise annotations, settled into the chair opposite my desk. We worked late into the nights, the city lights outside our window reflecting off the piles of legal documents. I expected friction, a clash of our disparate styles, but what emerged was something entirely different. I'd pitch an aggressive counterargument, a bold stroke in court, and Martha would methodically dissect its weaknesses, offering alternative, more subtle approaches I hadn't considered. Her meticulousness, which I once found tedious, now seemed like a bedrock of stability. She'd uncover a crucial precedent in obscure case law, and I, in turn, would find the most impactful way to present it, leveraging my persuasive speaking style. I found myself admiring her quiet tenacity, her unwavering focus. There was a sharp intellect beneath her calm demeanor, a depth of understanding that was truly formidable. She, in turn, seemed to appreciate my quick thinking, my ability to adapt and pivot under pressure. There were moments when we'd both stare at a particularly convoluted clause, then simultaneously meet each other's eyes, a flash of shared understanding passing between us, a silent agreement on the path forward. Those moments were rare, but they felt like magic, like two people speaking a language no one else could hear. The air between us, once thick with rivalry, now hummed with a different kind of energy, a collaborative pulse, surprisingly harmonious. My initial awe gave way to a genuine appreciation, a dawning respect that reshaped the landscape of my professional world. I even found myself observing small details about her. The way her brow furrowed in concentration, the soft, almost imperceptible hum she made when deep in thought, the elegant precision with which her pen glided across the page. The intense pressure of the Veritas case slowly chipped away at the professional barriers between us, revealing something unexpected beneath. Our discussions, once strictly legal, started to drift into more personal territory during late-night stretches. We'd order takeout, the scent of sesame oil and ginger permeating the office, and the conversation would naturally shift. "You're always so composed," I remember saying one evening, leaning back in my chair, watching her meticulously organize a stack of notes. "Doesn't anything ever faze you?" She paused, a small, wry smile touching her lips. "Of course. Plenty. But I find that panic rarely solves anything. My parents were both accountants. Precision and order were practically genetic predispositions." I laughed, a genuine, unforced sound. "Mine were artists. Free spirits. I think I inherited their tendency to paint in broad, sweeping strokes rather than tiny, meticulous details." These snippets of personal history, shared over lukewarm coffee and legal precedents, began to build bridges. I found myself drawn to her reserved nature, intrigued by the quiet strength that anchored her. There was a wisdom in her patience, a calm reassurance that I hadn't realized I needed. And she, in turn, seemed to thaw under my more vibrant energy, her eyes softening when I cracked a joke, a lightness entering her voice that I hadn't heard before. Subtle signs of connection began to surface, like delicate blooms pushing through the cracks in a pavement, a quick, shared glance across the conference table, a smile that lasted a second longer than necessary, an ease in each other's company that felt new but not unwelcome. I'd catch myself noticing the way the light caught the strands of her dark hair, or the elegant line of her jaw when she was deep in thought. A new kind of awareness hummed in my veins whenever she was near, a quiet curiosity about the unexplored depths of Martha Hayes. It was unsettling, exhilarating, and completely unanticipated. Our combined efforts on the Veritas case were truly yielding results. The legal arguments, once fragmented, now formed a cohesive, formidable front. We had found a way to leverage both our styles, my assertive challenges balanced by Martha's meticulous groundwork. The firm's partners, initially skeptical of our joint venture, now watched with growing approval. The easy camaraderie we developed began to acquire a new texture, something beyond friendship. We started to tease each other lightly, a playful banter that crackled with an unspoken energy. "Still trying to find a loophole in the laws of physics, Betty?" Martha would quip, her eyes dancing with amusement, when I contemplated a particularly audacious legal maneuver. I'd retort with a grin. "And you, Martha, still cataloging every grain of sand on the beach. One afternoon, we were hunched over an oversized map of corporate structures, tracing lines of ownership and intellectual property. Our heads were close, almost touching. Martha reached across the table for a specific document, and her hand brushed mine just a split second, a light touch. I froze, my focus slipping from the papers. She pulled back quickly, her cheeks flushed, and mumbled an apology. We both pretended to dive back into the work, but the room felt warmer, the silence heavier, like something had shifted, and neither of us knew how to name it. My heart hammered against my ribs, a new, disorienting rhythm. I started to notice the gentle curve of Martha's smile when she was genuinely pleased, the way her hair, when it escaped its neat ponytail, framed her face so softly. I found myself acutely aware of her scent, a subtle, clean fragrance that was uniquely her own. Martha, I realized, was observing me with equal intensity. I'd catch her eyes on me sometimes when I was passionately explaining a point, sometimes when I was simply lost in thought. There was a quiet appreciation in her gaze, a depth that stirred something unfamiliar and exhilarating within me. This burgeoning connection was a silent conversation, a language of glances and shared breaths, slowly reordering my internal world. The final hearing for the Veritas case arrived, a culmination of months of relentless work, an unexpected alliance, and a quiet, undeniable shift in my own heart. Martha and I walked into the courtroom side by side, a unified front. The aggressive lawyer and the meticulous strategist, now seamlessly integrated. We presented our arguments with a synergy that was almost telepathic. I delivered the forceful opening and closing statements, my voice ringing with conviction, while Martha, with her calm precision, guided our witnesses through complex testimony, deftly navigating the opposition's cross-examination. The opposing counsel, who had initially underestimated us, visibly faltered under our combined assault. The judge listened intently, her expression unreadable until the final verdict. When the gavel fell, and the words "verdict for the plaintiff," Veritas Innovations echoed through the quiet courtroom, I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. The tension in my shoulders melted away, and I turned to Martha. Her face, usually so composed, was split into a wide smile, her hazel eyes bright with joy. For a second, nothing else mattered. No firm politics, no past rivalry, just this win. And her. Mr. Harrison approached us, his stern demeanor replaced by profound gratitude. "Betty, Martha," he said, shaking each of our hands with unexpected warmth. "You two are a formidable team. Thank you. Truly." His praise, usually a source of immense satisfaction, felt different this time. It was a shared triumph, something I hadn't fully experienced before. That evening, we decided to celebrate, just the two of us. We chose a quiet, understated bar, the kind of place that Martha would appreciate. The clinking of glasses, the soft murmur of other conversations, created a cocoon of intimacy around us. I watched her as she recounted a particularly amusing moment from the trial, her laughter light and melodic. Her eyes, usually holding that deep, thoughtful calm, sparkled with an almost effervescent quality. The atmosphere between us was charged, thick with unspoken emotions, a recognition that this victory was not just professional, but deeply personal. I felt a pull towards her, a magnetism that defied explanation, a quiet revelation that settled deep within my chest. The celebratory drinks flowed easily, loosening the usual professional restraints. Laughter came more readily, conversation drifting from the triumphant details of the case to lighter, more personal anecdotes. The soft hum of the bar, the subtle clinking of ice in our glasses, created a world where only Martha and I existed. I found myself studying her face, the way her eyes crinkled at the corners when she smiled, the faint blush on her cheeks from the wine. There was an open, unguarded quality about her tonight that I hadn't witnessed before, and it drew me in. Martha, emboldened by the alcohol and the emotional intensity of our shared victory, set her glass down. Her gaze, usually so steady, now held a new, shimmering vulnerability. "Betty," she began, her voice soft, barely above a whisper, yet incredibly clear in the quiet hum of the room. I've always admired your spirit, your courage, your drive, more than I ever let on. She paused, her eyes searching mine, and I felt my breath catch in my throat. My heart quickened, a frantic drumbeat against my ribs. And lately, she continued, her voice gaining a quiet resolve, it's become more than admiration. It's something else entirely. The words hung in the air, potent and fragile. I saw the depth of her feelings, raw and exposed, in her gaze. It was a revelation that both stunned and resonated deep within me. My mind raced, grappling with the implications, with the sheer unexpectedness of it all. Martha, my rival, my partner, was confessing something profound. She leaned closer, her scent, a soft, clean smell that felt like her, filling my senses. There was a quiet pause, like we were both waiting for the other to move. Then, a soft contact of our lips, hesitant, tentative, a question more than a statement. A jolt went through me, a mix of surprise and something warm, something I hadn't felt before. My body tensed for a split second, old habits of guarding myself kicking in, but then I softened, letting the moment be. It was clumsy, unplanned, but it felt real, like the final piece of a puzzle I'd been trying to solve for months. The morning after felt like waking up in a different world. I stared at the ceiling, replaying the kiss over and over. The softness of her lips, the way my heart had raced, the confusion that followed. My rational side wanted to call it a mistake, a product of wine and victory. But another part of me, quieter but stronger, knew it wasn't. That's why I hesitated when the phone rang, why I was scared to hear her voice, scared she'd regret it, scared I would. Betty. Martha's voice was slightly reserved, a hint of vulnerability in her tone. Do you have time to talk? About last night? Yes, I managed, my voice a little hoarse. I do. We met at a quiet coffee shop, away from the firm. The air between us was laced with palpable awkwardness, a delicate tension. We ordered our drinks, the mundane ritual a small anchor in the storm of unspoken emotions. When we finally sat, our eyes met, and in her gaze, I saw a reflection of my own uncertainty, but also a quiet sincerity. I wasn't expecting any of this, Martha. I admitted, my voice softer than I intended. From rivals to partners, and now this. I gestured vaguely between us. But it wasn't unwelcome. That's the truth of it. The words felt heavy, yet freeing, as they left my lips. Martha's shoulders relaxed almost imperceptibly. I know, she said, her voice gentle. It surprised me too. More than I thought possible. We talked for a long time, laying bare our individual uncertainties, the unexpected shifts in our perceptions of each other. We didn't have all the answers. We didn't know how to navigate this. Two rivals, now partners, now something more at the same firm. But we knew we wanted to try. That was enough for now. In that vulnerability, a new foundation was being laid. One built not on ambition or competition, but on a burgeoning, undeniable connection. The weeks that followed our frank conversation were a delicate dance of discovery. Our relationship, once defined by professional rivalry, then by an intense collaborative partnership, now began to deepen into something entirely new and profoundly personal. Navigating this new terrain within the confines of our shared law firm was a challenge. There were quiet glances from colleagues, a subtle shift in the office dynamic, but we moved with quiet dignity, prioritizing our connection. We learned to communicate not just about legal strategies but about our feelings, even the difficult ones. I, who had always worn my ambition like a suit of armor, found myself slowly shedding layers of guardedness under Martha's calm, steady influence. She taught me the value of patience, of careful introspection, gently challenging my instinct to rush headlong into every situation. Martha, in turn, began to express herself more openly, her quiet reserve softening into moments of unexpected candor. I found immense comfort in her deliberate nature, realizing that her methodical approach wasn't a sign of hesitation, but of deep, considered thought. 3 months later, A new case tested us, one against a top-tier firm that had already beaten Sterling and Finch twice. The client, a small tech startup, was counting on us. Martha and I locked ourselves in my office for a week, arguing over strategies, staying late into the night. At one point, I slammed a file down, frustrated. "We're never going to agree," I said. She looked at me, calm but firm. "We will. Because we don't just want to win, we want to win together." She was right. We combined her deep dive into case law with my courtroom presence, and when we walked out of that courtroom with a win, I didn't just feel proud. I felt grateful. Grateful for her, for the way we balanced each other. Our love story wasn't a fiery explosion. It was a slow burn, a gradual unfurling. It was in the shared silence over coffee, the understanding glances across a crowded room, the unwavering support we offered each other, both professionally and personally. Martha's presence in my life began to heal a part of me I hadn't realized was broken. The constant, gnawing need for external validation, the relentless pursuit of victory at all costs. Her quiet acceptance, her belief in my intrinsic worth, began to replace that hollow ache with a deep, abiding sense of peace and shared joy. It was a journey of mutual growth, understanding, and the unexpected ways two different people could complete each other, creating harmony from what was once discord. A year unfolded, a tapestry woven with shared experiences, quiet laughter, and the steady, unwavering growth of our relationship. The initial awkwardness had long since faded, replaced by an easy intimacy, a profound understanding that felt as natural as breathing. Martha and I had not only learned to coexist with our fundamental differences, but had come to cherish them. My aggressive, passionate spirit was perfectly balanced by Martha's meticulous nature and calm wisdom. We were a formidable force, both in the courtroom and in the quiet sanctuary of our shared life, each enhancing the other's strengths. I often found myself reflecting on the profound impact Martha had on me. The constant striving, the internal battles I'd fought, the unacknowledged pressure to prove myself, all of it had begun to recede. Martha had shown me a different kind of strength, one rooted in vulnerability, in connection, in shared purpose. She didn't just accept me, she saw me, truly saw me, beyond the ambitious lawyer, beyond the sharp exterior. Her calm, steady love had quietly healed wounds I didn't even realize I was carrying, replacing the relentless pursuit of external validation with an inner peace, a shared joy that felt more valuable than any victory. We still got questions, whispers in the break room, curious looks from partners, but we didn't care. We'd built something real, a partnership that worked in the courtroom and in life. Our love story was a testament to unexpected connections and the transformative power of acceptance. Our life together was a continuous journey of learning, adapting, and growing. We were stronger now, individually more secure, and together, a resilient partnership ready for whatever lay ahead. The horizon before us was open, vast, and filled with the quiet promise of a future we were building, hand in hand, each step taken with a newfound grace and profound certainty.